Welcome back or welcome to Joy Unfiltered. I'm Rachel, your host, and I am so glad that you are here today. This is a space where we stop pretending that burnout is the price of success and start exploring a different way to lead, live, and actually feel good in our lives. Because here is what I believe at my core. Joy is not the reward. Joy is the strategy. And in a world that's been built on pressure, urgency, and endurance, we're doing things a little differently around here. We are choosing energy over exhaustion, regulation over reactivity, connection over competition, and we are doing it in a way that's grounded in both science and maybe a little bit of magic. So whether you are walking, driving, lifting something heavy, or just taking a breath in the middle of a busy day, I promise you are in the right place. So let's get into it. Today we are going to play with something small, almost invisible, super easy to overlook, but wildly powerful. We are going to talk today about micro joys. Not the big, cinematic, Instagram-worthy moments, not the vacation or the promotion or the someday when everything is perfect type of joy. I'm talking about the tiny sparks. The sip of coffee that hits just right. The text from a friend that actually makes you laugh out loud. The sun hitting your face like it actually chose you specifically. The moment your body exhales without you even realizing you are holding your breath. Micro joys. They're not extra. They are certainly not fluff. They're not a bonus round. They are the strategy. And today, we're going to go a little deeper. We are going to talk science, nervous systems, brain chemistry, performance, leadership, and yes, we're going to get into the macros of joy. Because if joy were a diet, and if you've been here long enough, you know I love a good framework. We wouldn't just talk about eat more joy. We would break it down. We would make it practical. We would make it certainly repeatable and sustainable. So let's build this together. Let's start with this. Your brain is not designed to notice joy. Let me say that again. Your brain is not designed to notice joy. Your brain is designed to notice threat. There's something called negativity bias. Your brain scans for danger faster, more frequently, and more intensely than it scans for anything positive. This is evolutionary. This is survival. This is your brain saying, hey, I really just want to keep you alive today, which is fantastic if you're running away from a tiger. Less great when your quote-unquote tiger is an email, a headline, or your inner inner critic. What this means is that joy doesn't just show up and knock on your door like a cheerful neighbor with banana bread. Joy requires participation. Joy requires noticing. And this is where micro joys come in. Micro joys are small enough to slip past resistance. They don't require a total life overhaul. They don't require you to quit your job, move to Bali, or suddenly become a morning person who journals for 45 minutes while sipping green juice. No, they require one thing: attention. And attention, neurologically speaking, is everything. Where attention goes, neural pathways grow. And when you start noticing micro joys, you are literally rewiring your brain. You are strengthening circuits associated with gratitude, safety, and positive affect. You are training your brain to see more of what's already available. And this is not wishful thinking. This is neuroplasticity. Now, let's layer in the nervous system. When you experience a micro joy, even for a few seconds, your body can shift out of stress dominant state. Cortisol begins to decrease. Dopamine and serotonin begin to rise. Your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest system, gets a little tap on the shoulder that says, hey, we are okay right now. And here is the wild part. It doesn't take a huge moment to do that. Research shows that even brief positive experiences, when consciously noticed and felt, remember that, when consciously noticed and felt, can create measurable shifts in mood and physiology. This is what some researchers call micro acts of joy. Tiny moments, big impact. So if you've been waiting to feel better until life gets easier, I am going to lovingly interrupt that pattern right now. Because your body doesn't need a perfect life to feel safe. It needs signals. And micro joys are signals. They are tiny green lights in a world that often feels like flashing red. Now, let's talk about the macros of joy. If you have listened before, you have heard this, but I want you to walk away from this episode not just inspired, but equipped. What if joy were something we could track, like we track protein, carbs, and fat? What would the categories be? Well, here's how I would break them down. Macro number 1, noticing. This is the gateway. If you don't notice joy, you don't experience it. It's just that simple. Noticing is awareness. It's presence. It's the moment you catch something small and say, hey, that's kind of nice. And I want you to hear this. Noticing is a skill. Let me say that again. Noticing is a skill. If you feel like you're just not a joyful person or you don't see the good things, that's not a personality flaw. That is a trained pattern. And patterns can be retrained. You can practice noticing just like you practice a muscle or work out a muscle in the gym. You can decide, today I'm going to look for 3 micro joys. And at first, that might feel forced. And that's okay. That's okay. That means you're doing something new. Eventually, it will become a little more natural. Your brain will start scanning for joy in the same way it used to scan for problems. And that changes everything. So that first macro, noticing. Macro number 2, allowing. This one is a little sneaky because a lot of us notice something good and then immediately shut it down. We minimize it. We rush past it. We say, that's nice, but, and then we go right back to stress. Allowing is deleting that but. Allowing is letting the moment land. It's about staying with the joy for a few seconds longer than maybe is comfortable. Because here is what the research shows. Positive experiences need about 10 to 20 seconds of conscious attention to really stick in the brain. Let me repeat that. Positive experiences need about 10 to 20 seconds of conscious attention to really stick in the brain. Otherwise, they just pass through like a cloud. Negative experiences, as we talked about before, those stick immediately. So allowing is your way of balancing the scale. It's you saying, I'm going to let this feel good. I'm going to sit in this for a moment. I'm not going to rush away from it. This is where your body starts to believe that joy is safe. And safety matters more than you think. So again, we are going to notice, and then we are going to allow. The third macro is sharing. This is where joy multiplies. When you share a moment of joy, whether it's through a conversation, a laugh, or a simple text, you amplify it. Social connection is one of the most powerful regulators of the nervous system. Let's say when you send a joyful text, you are not just lifting someone else, you are reinforcing your own experience of joy. There's a feedback loop. There's a feedback loop that happens. Connection increases oxytocin. Oxytocin increases feelings of safety and trust. Safety and trust make it easier to notice more joy. And suddenly, what started out as a tiny moment, one tiny text, let's say, becomes a ripple. This is why our one text a day movement is not just something cute. It's not just something fun that I thought about. It is neurological genius. It's emotional infrastructure. It's culture shifting. Because you are taking micro joys and turning them into shared experiences. And shared experiences are what build communities. And let's zoom out for a second. Why does this matter? Why does this matter for leadership, performance? Why does this matter for your life? Because most people are operating in a chronic state of low-level stress. Not necessarily panic, although sometimes. Not necessarily crisis, although also that. But just constant pressure. Always on. Always thinking. Always managing. And when you live there, your brain starts to lose flexibility. Your decision-making narrows. Your creativity drops. Your patience thins. Your relationships feel harder. You don't become a worse person. You just become a more stressed version of yourself. Micro joys interrupt all of that. They create micro recoveries. Think of them like reps in the gym, but for your nervous system. Every time you notice, allow, and share a moment of joy, you are practicing regulation. You are building capacity. You are teaching your body, I can come back to center. I can feel good. I can access something different. And over time, those micro shifts become a macro change. This is the part people miss. They think transformation has to be dramatic. But the most powerful changes are often quiet. They are consistent. They are repeatable. They are sustainable. They look like pausing 10 seconds to feel the sun. Smiling at someone instead of just scrolling past them or strolling past them, one or the other. Sending a text that says, "I was thinking about you." Taking one deep breath before responding instead of reacting. Those are not random acts. Those are strategic choices. And when you stack them, day after day after day, you change your baseline. You become someone who experiences more joy, not because your life is perfect, but because your attention is different. So let's talk about dopamine for a second. Because we live in a world constantly trying to hijack your dopamine system. Social media, notifications, sugar, quick hits of pleasure. These things create spikes. You go fast up, and then you come fast down. But micro joys are different. Micro joys create more stable, sustainable dopamine responses. They're not overwhelming. They're grounding. And when your dopamine system is more regulated, you experience more motivation, more focus, more satisfaction. And all of that without the crash. This is why chasing those big highs often leaves you feeling empty, and why cultivating small, consistent joys leaves you feeling full. Now, I want to bring this into your actual day, because this is not meant to stay theoretical. This is not just a bunch of fun information to give you. This is meant to be lived. So here's a simple start. I want you to pick a number, any number. Let's say 3. 3 micro joys a day. That's it. You're not picking 27. You're not picking 1 million. You are not overhauling your life. You're not adding a 2-hour morning routine. You're just deciding, I am going to notice 3 moments. They can be anything. Remember, they're micro. Your coffee. Maybe it's a song on the radio. Does anybody listen to the radio anymore? Maybe I'm dating myself. A kind interaction. A quiet moment. And remember those 3 macros. Step 1, notice it. Step 2, allow it. Stay with it for at least 10 seconds. And step 3, share it. Text someone, say it out loud, write it down. That's your practice. And here's what's going to happen. Here's what's really going to happen. At first, it's going to feel super small. Then it will feel consistent. And then it's going to start to feel natural. And then it's going to just feel like who you are. Because identity is built through repetition. You don't become a joyful person by declaring it once. You don't just say, I am a joyful person. You become a joyful person by practicing joy daily. Micro joys are your reps. Now, I want to speak to something that might be coming up for you right now. Because whenever we talk about joy, there's often a little voice that says, yes, Rachel, but what about the hard stuff? What about stress? What about grief? What about real life? And I'm here to tell you, joy is not the absence of those things. Joy is the presence of something alongside them. You can feel overwhelmed and still notice a beautiful moment. You can be going through something so difficult and you can still send a kind text. You can hold both. This is a both and situation. In fact, that is where the power is. Joy becomes most meaningful not when everything is easy, but when it exists anyway. That's resilience. That's emotional range. That's leadership. Because leaders who can access moments of joy, even in pressure, create a different environment. They make better decisions. They're able to connect more deeply. They bring a sense of steadiness that others can actually feel. Not because they're ignoring reality, not because they are putting on their rose-colored glasses, but because they're not consumed by it. Microjoys are not denial. Microjoys are regulation. Microjoys are a choice. Microjoys are strategy. And if you zoom out far enough, they are how cultures change. Because one person noticing joy changes their day. When one person sharing joy changes a moment for someone else, and enough of those moments start to shift entire environments. Homes, workplaces, communities. This is how movements begin. Not with one massive action, but with millions of small ones. So here's your invitation. Today, don't wait for a big reason to feel good. Don't wait for everything to line up perfectly. Start small. Look for it. Let it land, and then share it. And then do it again tomorrow. Because joy is not something you earn at the end of a perfect day or the end of a perfect life. Joy is something you practice in the middle of a real one. And I promise, the more you practice, the more available it becomes. And the more available it becomes to you, the more your life starts to feel different. Not because everything suddenly changed, not because there was magic pixie dust sprinkled on your life, but because you changed. So today, go back to that number, and if you didn't pick a number, pick 3. 3 micro joys. And then I want you to send one text, one simple, joyful message. No pressure, no perfection, just connection. Because that one text might be the spark in someone else's day. And it might just be the moment that your brain starts to see the world a little differently. And before you go, take 10 seconds and do something else powerful. I'm asking you to sign a pledge. Sign a pledge to send one joyful text a day. The link is in the show notes. Send that joyful text and then come back and leave a comment with "done." I promise I read every single comment and it matters more than you think. And if this episode gave you even one spark, one little tiny piece of micro joy, subscribe so that you don't miss what's next. And if you want to, share it with someone else who could use a little more joy in their day. Because one micro joy can change a moment, but together, I wonder what 1,000,000 could do to change the world. And remember, I'm Rachel, and from my heart to yours, I am celebrating you today and every day. So have fun, live well, enjoy.